With the last glass protection video I did attracting over 500,000 views, and my current car's 25-year-old stuff not sporting anything other than what it's been superficially spritzed with, thought another deep glass clean and coating related upload might be a good call for both the car and the channel. So while I utilised Soft 99's Glaco DX to thoroughly protect the CRZ's glass with a few years back, thought I'd put what I had left of the more durable ultra coating to use on the 20 valve turbos here, only falling back on the DX stuff if I ran out. And while superficially hydrophobic from previous wash and spritzes, the current car's glass had probably never been treated to a deep cleaning dedicated coat, so figured along with a few other run-of-the-mill enhancement jobs like scrubbing out the shuts and tarting up the engine bay was worth checking off the list before committing to bigger things like polishing up and protecting the paintwork. Although it might be tempting to skip straight to the protectants, especially if your glass looks clean to start with, in order to get the best out of it you need to make sure it's not just clean but also thoroughly stripped back of any previously applied products that might jeopardise the adhesion of the new stuff. And because I'll be tying in a quick wash with this glass treatment, went ahead and started that procedure with an abrasive Meguiars Wash Plus powered contact scrub, which isn't essential but just made sense to me here, so worked my way around the old car with a loaded microfiber mitt, ensuring all of its glass was given a real heavy-handed scrub. And apologies in advance for any out-of-focus shots that I might have had to include here, but my supposedly prosumer dedicated video camera does like to troll, which is why someday soon it will be getting smashed up in a field, office space style. So although I used an abrasive shampoo, you could clearly see that the glass was still heavily hydrophobic, which while usually desirable wouldn't do here. So went ahead and put a fresh bottle of Soft 99's Glaco compound to use to begin to strip back any water repellent residue that could also serve to repel the coating. First priming the affixed felt head with some of the product before thoroughly working it over the surface in both circular and back and forth motions until any visible spots of repellency between the product's water-based formula and the glass underneath had been knocked back, the hydrophilic objective of which was then quickly confirmed with a subsequent pressure rinse. The liquid compound that makes use of two different abrasives to safely strip back and deep clean glass can either be used wet or dry, and while working wet will generally create a bit more mess, especially if spreading it slapdash like I was here to try and get things sorted before the stonking summer sun broke out. We'll also use a tad less product in my experience, but so long as you have either a hose pipe, pressure washer or bucket of suds to hand, a bit of splatter shouldn't give too much cause for concern. While adequately stripping everything back can be quite labour intensive, especially when compared to the protective treatment, which is more of a simple swipe, wipe and buff, It's an important part of the process that shouldn't be neglected, and with a full bottle of this stuff provided enough product to thoroughly strip back at least a couple of cars worth of glass, there's no need to be particularly shy with it, which, rightly or wrongly, I rarely am with products I use on camera. But either way, once I felt this particular car's glass had been sufficiently stripped back to a fully non-repellent finish, rinse things off one last time to confirm that, as well as to remove any residue, so I could then think about drying things off, as the last thing you want when applying dedicated protectants is the presence of water. So because the glass was now completely hydrophilic, a blow dryer wouldn't have been very effective, so just quickly towel dried it off instead. And despite being something pretty straightforward you've likely seen me do many times before, thought that if I didn't include at least a few shots of it being done would no doubt get plonkers who can't read between the lines, commenting on how unprofessional I am for subsequently applying the protectant to a wet or spotted surface. So here I am quickly drying the car off before grabbing a spot of lunch. And by lunch, I mean a packet of fake Meguiars and a fruit pastel lolly. While the previous 500,000 viewers saw me slapping Glaco's 4-month DX formulation over my compact Honda's glass, thought I'd switch it up for the current Italian stallion and go with their 12-month ultra coating, or at least what I had left of it here instead. So started up top with the sunroof, first priming the pad on the glass with a light squeeze, before spreading it over the surface every which way with the self-dispensing bottle to ensure even and adequate coverage, as any untreated spots will become unsightfully obvious later down the line if you don't. Then after a 5-minute off-camera cure, the bulk of the residue was initially knocked back with a damp general purpose versatile, which also served to cool the glass a bit so it could then be given a secondary buff with a separate dry one. And while working with this more durable formulation isn't as effortless as working with the lighter stuff, thankfully didn't prove to be too much of a ball ache under the warm skies either. Although applying the product in a crosshatch manner isn't critical, it is recommended as it tends to give the most even and uniform coverage compared to a more haphazard one. And while it's always best to get things prepped and protected in the shade if possible, with the forecast for the following 5 days being unbroken summer stonkage, had to crack on. But as I've said many times before when it comes to my sunny product applications, if I can manage to make things work in suboptimal conditions, then just imagine the results you could potentially bring about in far more favourable ones. The visible residue this particular product lays down is a bit more chalky than the lighter filmy stuff the DX protectant leaves behind, which, considering it's a fluoropolymer based formulation much like Soft 99's legendary Fuso Coat paste wax, makes perfect sense. But that's the price you pay for up to 12 months worth of chemical resistant protection, which a 75ml bottle like this should give you up to 7 windscreens or 2 full cars worth if you're treating all of the glass. And while I managed to get most of mine done here, did run out with 2 side windows to go, so just filled them in with the Glaco DX instead, as there was plenty of that left with it being a 100ml bottle. But doing this raised a slickness related dilemma, as it left the glass feeling so much smoother than the previously applied product, which for me is a big part of the appeal of protecting things, so decided to whack a sacrificial layer of the lighter stuff over the previously treated surfaces as well, which I'm sure isn't recommended but just couldn't resist. So while I'd like to think this hybrid concoction will serve to bring out the best of both worlds, in reality without 12 hours of cure time in between applications, the separate formulations will probably just end up chemically clashing and cancelling each other out at best, but you never know, you can effectively layer paintwork protectants for durability and slickness, so maybe this will prove to be an interesting experiment. But either way, it's not sponsored content and it's my own car, so it doesn't really matter what the long-term result is. As long as the glass looked glossy, felt slick and was protected in some way, shape or form here, then I was happy. In my mind, there's no point deep cleaning, enhancing and protecting the exterior of your glass if you're going to completely overlook the interior of it. So, although mine unsurprisingly wasn't particularly dirty, still made sure to give it a fairly thorough wipe down and buff over before grabbing some final aftershots, which gave me the opportunity to mention the Glaco decleaner stuff I was using, which, while being a great standalone product, is also perfect for keeping previously coated glass looking its best, as while it gently cleans, it also adds a light sacrificial layer of protection of its own, which helps keep the main one underneath nourished, unclogged and therefore able to continue to perform. So with that in mind, went ahead and treated everything to a part in spritz, wipe and buff to ensure there was no unsightly smears knocking about that the keen-eyed amongst you might have tried to hold me to account for. The proof of a rain repellent protectant is in the pudding, so once it came around, nipped out to illustrate the now hopefully hydrophobic properties of the double coated glass, both in situ and when out on the move, as it can be quite a mesmerising thing to see in full effect, whether it be the wind whisking raindrops off the surface without the need for wipers, or a blow dryer efficiently eliminating what remains following a final rinse. And while how long exactly that slick repellency will last for admittedly remains to be seen, I was confident that even with my ill-considered dual application, I'd still see a fair few months worth of reduced surface friction. So while deep cleaning and protecting the exterior of your glass might not be completely transformative, doing so, especially on a previously neglected older car like this, can still serve to aesthetically bump it up a point and carry it a step closer to being acceptably sorted overall. Not to mention, of course, improved visibility, which most will probably argue is a tad more important than it simply looking good. Now, with this not being an officially sponsored video or anything, I haven't got any offers to plug for you, but you can still find links to the featured tools and products in the description below. And with a fair few deep cleaning, enhancement and protection duties still to check off the list for this old 20 valve turbo, shouldn't be too long before I'm back with more.